Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Prog Report podcast, a sort of a different special episode we like to do every once in a while. You'll notice the title, When Hair Metal Went Prog. It's sort of a loose title here. Joining me is my good friend Kyle Graves, and we'll get into why we decided to do this one. So I think if you follow the podcast and have seen some of the stuff we've covered before, we throw in bands like Def Leppard. Obviously, we've done a number of times. Even bands like Winger and, Queensryche is sort of on the border. And, we've talked about Whitesnake and I don't know, different bands from time to time. Kyle and I both grew up in an era where all these bands, late 80s to mid 90s, sort of that era there, even when grunge was kind of taken over, there's still some stuff coming out. That whole period of about 10 years was a very key period in my musical upbringing and in Kyle's as well. It's what dominated radio. It's what dominated MTV. It's when we were in high school, entering college, those years where you're really into music. So while, yes, we love prog, yes, we love our metal, we love this stuff. But the thing is that the hair metal tag, which we used here because it is what it is, but it's made a lot of these bands have a bad negative connotation, I guess, over the years. And even the satellite radio station, Hair Nation is, that's what, it's just what, these bands by, unfortunately for them. But, I've always believed that if you threw out some of the cheesy singles that were on MTV and got rid of the hairspray and the power ballads underneath, that was one, amazing musicianship. These guys were all awesome musicians. Some of the best guitar players still to this day, amazing singers. You don't get singers like these singers anymore. And sometimes good production, sometimes not great, but also you got really great, interesting songwriting in many cases, songs that were on the B side of the record that weren't singles, that were longer tracks, that, stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do here is revisit a few selections from that era, songs that we think are more on the proggy side. Kyle, I'll let you have the floor on what you think about this.
Yeah, I think we all have prog friends, and I think what is cool about the prog community is that we are all pretty open-minded. You know what I mean? It's not just you only listen to Genesis and Yes and King Crimson, but just like us, people have grown up with lots of different types of music. I will on any given day listen to a jazz record, listen to a classical record, listen to new age, whatever. And, it's kind of like what you said. We both came up in the 80s and 90s where this stuff was just everywhere. I mean, this was what popular music was. If you look at somebody posted one of those things on Facebook the other day, like the Billboard 1987, top 20 chart. And you're just like, man, it was Bon Jovi, it was Def Leppard, it was Rad, it was Poison, it was Motley Crue, it was all this stuff. And that's what was music. It was kind of become hip hop, these days and pop music and stuff. But I think it's cool that we're touching on this stuff because I think there's a lot of people that are into prog that will probably relate to this, that probably have a wider spectrum of taste like we do. Yeah, and then you're gonna have like the Simpsons comic book guy who's gonna be just like, no, it's got to be prog, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if it's not close to the edge, it's not prog. He's like, all right,
Yeah.
so
To me, there's always, prog was almost kind of in the middle, right? And then you had, on one hand, you had the parts where then it got heavier and you had the metal side. So you
right.
wanted to listen to Pantera, Metallica, whatever. And then you had sort of the hair metal side, which was prog. It was good playing, which was always what kept me interested. But then you also had a poppy element with like hooks and stuff. And then on another sort of corner, you have the Jellyfish, ELO, Supertramp, you know,
Right.
which was interesting pop music. So to me, it's all, there's a Venn diagram in there where it all kind of intersects.
Exactly.
So I love this stuff. And in many ways, man, secretly, like hair metal prog, which is like its own unique, this is what this podcast is. Hair metal prog is like some of my all-time favorite music for real. I love this stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. So what we did was, between Kyle and myself, we picked 13 songs, 13 different bands, And yeah, we're going to play about a minute or so, as we've done before in previous podcasts. Hopefully nothing gets blocked. We'll see what happens. Um, yeah, and then we'll just have a little fun with it. Cool. So let me go
Cool.
ahead and move us over here a little bit and bring up the screen. Okay, so first up, I'll kick this off. This is a band that not many people know about. They're Canadian. Harem Scarum, admittedly one of the worst band names of all time, and
A
would
little bit.
right away make you say, I never want to listen to this band. But funny enough, I'll never forget this. I was working at a record distributor a long time ago, and somebody knew that I liked Dream Theater and Spock's Beard, and this guy handed me Harem Scarum, and he said, "You're going to love this. Trust me." And I went, okay. And man, 20 years later, I've bought 15 of their albums. One of my all-time favorite bands. Basically, if you like extreme porno graffiti three sides era, that's what these guys are essentially. Very vocal oriented. The guitar player is like Nuno Light, one of the best guitar players you'll ever hear
Oh,
that no one's ever heard of. Pete
I was gonna
Lesperance is
say,
his name.
what's his name? What is it?
Pete Lesperance. I think that's how you say
Okay. Yep.
the last name.
Don't, don't know
The
it.
singer is Harry Hess, dead ringer for Gary Sharon. Not gonna lie. And yeah, man, they're awesome. They're as consistent as anything. Every couple of years, they put out a new record, 10 to 12 songs, 4 or 5 minute songs. Great playing. I just love them. This album, which I think was their third record, Voice of Reason, their first and second one, really going back a ways in the 90s, were their two biggest ones that had maybe a video on MTV. Outside of that, they've been pretty much Japan, Europe, Canada, that whole thing. Um, and a lot of their records don't even get released in America. I think lately, the last few, they've been on Frontiers, so they have had a bit more circulation. But they have a crap ton of records. And yeah, this one is the heaviest, proggiest one. Voice of Reason. This is the title track, opening track from it. One of the baddest opening guitar riffs ever. And yeah, so we'll play a little bit of this.
Cool.
I've been a reverend to the power controlling me. It's now a force coming down hard on me. When in a war with fate, you learn to lose. Give me the sun, the clouds are on the way. I'm on a guild, a trip for a holiday. Coming apart, the pieces only glue. It's a shame the voice of reason
Nice twist.
Yeah, I like it.
finally falls astray. Same with all the seasons, some shades of falling rain. Now all I can do.
There you go.
Nice.
Badass.
Nice.
Now we
Yeah,
didn't
that's
get
a
to the
cool song.
Yeah, we didn't get to the guitar playing, but only so much time in the world. But man, he shreds like no one's business. So
Yeah, this is a band that I'm not familiar with. Like you said, man, I think I'm certainly familiar with the name. I've been hearing the name for 20 years, and it's just one of those bands I just never checked out. There's so many bands out there.
yeah,
But it definitely, I like that song. You sent that to me. It's got kind of a King's Xy,
that too.
vibe. There's
Yeah,
some really cool like vocal harmonies, very Beatlesy kind of thing. But yeah, that's a cool. I'm definitely gonna check these guys out now that you've turned me on to them. That
yeah.
we've
The
talked a
other,
little bit. There's a band
sorry.
called Pretty Maids out of Denmark
Yes,
that
yeah. Not far off stylistically a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
they write good hooks. That's the cool thing about both bands. The other album I would say, if you want to see them really pull off their porno graffiti moment, is the album that came out before this one called Mood Swings, which is really really cool. This album came out in '95, so really sort of on the end of
Mm,
the hair metal thing. So they were just getting in there. Okay,
good. Yeah, you don't get much more more hair metal than the
Yeah.
downloaders. The guys in the white leather fringe, you know. I was never really a big fan, to be honest with you. It was all a little too cheesy for me.
Hmm.
Right down to the cherry pie euphemisms and all the sexual innuendo stuff. It's just like, okay, we get it. I did like Uncle Tom's Cabin. I thought that was a cool, it had a little bit of a bite to it, gave you a little bit of a history lesson. But their third album, this came out in '92, is called Dog Eat Dog. And I pretty much kind of blew it off, wasn't going to listen to it. And then I started working for Sony at the time, and that was their label. And this record is way heavier. They toned down all the hair and makeup and all that glammy, hair metal look. And the song that I picked on here is called April 2031. Really cool, kind of post-apocalyptic, eerie, haunting vibe about how we've destroyed the earth. And it's got the lyrics really kind of make you think. So if anybody, as you guys go back and listen to this and maybe pull it up, or if we put together a playlist, check out the lyric because it's very specific on how like there's a nuclear ring around the moon, and I hope the radiation doesn't make me sick tonight. It's just kind of a cool story. But and you and I were talking a little bit about this, Roy. It may not be the most progressive song ever, but certainly for a band like Warrant, who wore all that the cringy fringe, it's pretty progressive.
Yeah.
And I think the vocal, whatever effect they put on Janie Lane's voice, it kind of makes it sound real haunting, and maybe that's why I'm thinking it's progressive. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But
I remember
it takes
this
you on a
one.
journey.
I remember this one when it came out, being their heavy record, and I may have checked out a song or two, but I really never got into this one, to be honest. But I wasn't really that big of a fan. There was some of the hair metal stuff it just crossed over into too much for me, which I think you agree. Like, and Warrant was kind of one
100%.
of those bands where it was a little too hokey. Except I will say, Uncle Tom's Cabin, like you were saying, and Mr.
Yes.
Rainmaker from the Cherry Pie record.
Oh, forgot about that. Yeah, that's a good song.
Badass
Right.
songs. Those were really,
Yeah,
really good. All right, so let's check this one out for a little bit. I skipped a little bit ahead on this one.
Birds to fly through it. Stories we all love to tell our kids. So I close my electronic door and keep the cold outside. Hug my aluminium pillow so tight, and pray the radiation doesn't make me sick tonight.
Very cool. Yeah, that part's badass. I do think that's pretty cool.
Right on. Yeah, I think a lot of the bands that what we're talking about, because how old are you, Roy? You're a couple years younger than me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, you want an
So,
exact
like,
number?
Yeah. No, I'm 52, and you're
I'm 48.
40. Okay. So yeah, I got 4 years on you. Growing up in the '80s, most of the bands that we're talking about, were probably 8 to 10 years older than we were, right? '80s and early '90s.
Yeah.
And so you figure they came up in the '70s when prog rock was a thing, like the influences that they had heard on the radio. So it's not altogether surprising that a lot of these bands we're talking about, even though they were hair metal bands and they had a whole look and a sound and everything,
Right.
that they would be influenced by a lot of the prog rock stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, no, totally. And playing the guitar. Every one of these bands started with, first we get a good guitar player, then we get a good singer. Every one of these
Yep.
bands had at least those two things, and that part's lost. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully in the prog world that we listen to, it's not, but generally speaking, not important anymore, which is kind of lame.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to, this one's amazing. So Bonham, I don't know how many people remember that Jason Bonham, son of John Bonham, had a band in the very late '80s, a couple of records, really good records. The first one, The Disregard of Timekeeping. If we make any mistakes, apologize. We don't have all the notes on everything. So, but generally we have an idea of all these records. This one came out in '89. And I love this one, man. From the minute I first heard this song when it came out, I remember I was blown away because it sounded massive. The drum sound that he had was amazing. And I mean, they were really copying Kashmir on this song, like heavy, and the singer's trying to be Robert Plant. I mean, they don't make any apologies about it. But but it was really good, and this is still one of my favorite songs from that era. The album had a lot of great moments. A notable, interesting thing is Trevor Rabin is a guest on one of the songs, one of the other songs in this album. I think doing backing
Really?
vocals inexplicably for some
Wow.
reason.
How random, man.
Yeah, but no, killer record, and yeah, good song. So I skipped a little bit on this one as well. Let's see, where did we go to on this one? All right.
Sad when you're near. Take the time. I'm showing you the love I for you. You're too young to know what it is that I feel. All that I can do is wait for you. Just wait for you. All that I can do
Jason Bonham looks so different now.
Yeah.
So funny.
just wait for
Love that part. That part's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
song.
This is a great song. I remember thinking, certainly, the whole Zeppelin thing is just so over the top obvious, but even his big bonzo drum sound, the drums sound so massive. But I remember thinking, even more than sounding like Zeppelin, it sounded like solo Robert Plant stuff that was coming out in the late
That too.
80s.
Yeah.
Stuff like Now and Zen and Fate of Nations. I love those records,
Mm.
and that's what this reminded me of a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't blame him for kind of picking up where Dad left off.
Right. Totally. Yep. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Which was, let's see what we got here. Blue Murder.
Blue Murder.
Valley of the
Yeah,
Kings.
man.
Yeah.
I have always been a big Sykes guy. A lot of people, if you don't know, he was obviously in Whitesnake before. He was in Tigers of Pantang. He was in Thin Lizzy. The guy's an amazingly talented musician. And the thing with Whitesnake, some people know, a lot of people don't know, he wrote all those huge songs that are still on the radio, that are in Geico commercials, and
Yeah.
Here I Go Again, all those big Whitesnake songs that we all know and love. John Sykes wrote those with David Coverdale, and then got booted from the band. So you had Adrian Vandenberg, Vivian Campbell, Steve Vai came later, maybe on the second record after that.
Mhm.
But you had all these guitar players who got MTV famous on the back of John Sykes' songs. So I'm sure there's a bit of bitterness there. So to combat that a little bit, he puts together Blue Murder with Carmine Apathy. Is it Carmine? Carmine or no? Yeah, it's Carmine.
Carmine.
I always get those two confused.
I know.
Carmine and
Tony
Tony
Franklin.
Franklin. Yeah,
One of the
amazing
best bass
player, man.
players
That guy-
ever.
Good gracious! Every time you hear him, he plays fretless electric and just amazing. But talk about hair metal. Like Tony Franklin's hair
Yeah.
was like this mohawk thing. It was like huge. It was like a bouffant mixed with a mohawk. Nobody had that hair. Like that was just unique to Tony.
Well, in this
then
video,
you had
Sykes has a nice one going too. It's hilarious.
Huge, massive hair. I mean, he was a hair farmer. Like he upside down with mousse and
But-
hairspray and all that stuff.
But man, this album was like, I remember when this one came out, it was like one of the really revered, like serious hair metal records, like
Yes.
for the real musicians that
Right.
weren't singing about girls and like, it rocked. I mean, and then it had that song Jelly Roll, which is like the best What a
Yeah.
cool song. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah. There was so much more depth to that. They had the look, they had the whole hair metal thing going on, but there was so much more depth to these songs. Um, I'll tell you a quick story. So, I think most people that watch the Prog Report know that a bunch of us are pretty friendly with Mike Portnoy. And so about 13 years ago, I was texting him about a John Sykes song. It was on one of his solo records called Don't Say Goodbye. It was all about John Lennon.
Hmm.
And obviously, Portland's a huge Beatles guy. So I'm texting him saying, hey, have you ever heard this song? It's a great song. And he replied back and said, shh, I'm putting together a new band with John Sykes. And I was like, yes, you got him off the couch. You got like he hadn't been heard of in a long time.
Right.
And obviously, that never went anywhere, as we all know.
Became the
He
Winery
couldn't get off the
Dogs.
couch. It became the Winery Dogs, which is great. Love those guys. Love what they've become. But there's always that sense of like, what could Valley of the Kings, John Sykes, Blue Murder, that kind of progressive side of him and Mike
Yeah.
Portnoy come
Yeah,
up
because
with
he's
together.
an amazing
That would have been
songwriter and
amazing.
player. The second Blue Murder record, what was it called? Nothing But Trouble.
That's it.
Was a sort of a hodgepodge, right? It was like half
Yeah.
of it's amazing, and then half of it is not great at all.
Nope.
It was a weird record. But
Funny
the
we
good
have the
stuff
exact
on
same
there
opinion.
is great. It wasn't even, it
Absolutely.
didn't even sound like this Blue Murder album. It was almost him
Right.
solo with some other guys. And yes, right. But it's worth checking out if you like this stuff. But yeah, I mean, Blue Murder this is one of those legendary records from that era for sure. And it was a good call by you to add this one. Let's check this out.
That's a lot of hair.
He had such a recognizable guitar sound too,
Yeah.
You knew it was
So
him right
different,
away.
man, that
He
was
is
so
awesome.
different.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good
Yep.
stuff. All right, these are sort of in a getting more proggy as they go order, but not specifically. We're not ranking them or anything. But I think we left maybe the more real proggy stuff towards the end of this. So, all right, I am up, and my next one is MSG. Macaulay, but the Macaulay Schenker group with so it's Michael Schenker. Nice shirt. Wow.
How about that?
There you go.
Pull
Yeah.
that out of the back of the
Wow.
closet. Yeah.
So obviously legendary guitar player Michael Schenker. He had the band MSG for years before this, but then he reformed it in an offshoot with singer Robin McAuley, who I don't know where he came from before this, to be honest. This was the first time I had heard of Robin McAuley. Do you know where he was from before?
So he was kind of a journeyman. He'd been in a bunch of different projects and stuff, but the thing that I remember hearing him, he was this group called the Far Corporation,
Hmm.
and it was the guy who put together Milli Vanilli. That's what it was in that whole scandal with lip syncing. They
Right.
did a cover of Stairway to Heaven.
Okay.
And it
That
was
sounds vaguely
so
familiar.
bizarre.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it was
sounds
so
vaguely
bizarre.
familiar.
I met Robin years later and I talked to him about it and he kind of pulled me aside and he was like, they paid me so much money to do that. I couldn't say no. But yeah, that's the only thing I remember Robin doing before MSG came. We got the gig in MSG.
Yeah, I love this guy's voice. I think he's one of the best singers from that era. He was awesome. Still sounds great. He put out a couple of solo records recently, and he did this band Black Swan with Red Beach, and the guy can still sing. Yeah, I mean, not too much of the stuff these guys were doing was proggy. It was in that similar kind of Whitesnake, Bonham-ish kind of stuff, but with shredding like crazy because Michael Schenker's a badass. But this was their third album, and it had this really cool epic acoustic track at the end, which was awesome with all this Spanish guitar and all this stuff. And I always dug this one a lot. But another one of my favorite bands from there. I can put on the first MSG album, this MSG album, anytime and just be totally entertained. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Speaking of anytime, quote unquote, their big single off the second record, which is also a really good song. That would be one of my top power ballads from that era, for sure. So let's see, how do I get to? Oh, there it is. All right, let's check this out.
I can't sleep alone anymore. Need someone here with me. All I ever wanted and more. My dreams are fighting for never-ending nightmare. Always there instead of you. Never-ending nightmare. Punishing me for the things I do. Never-ending nightmare. No escaping from you.
So good.
Beautiful.
All the guitars going around, the panning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that tour. Did you happen to see that tour?
I don't think I ever saw them live. No, sadly.
In '92, they did an unplugged tour, and I mean, it's one of those like just like you've seen a million concerts, being in the music business for a long time. It stands out. It was two guitar players and Robin. That was it. No percussion, no bass. It was obviously Schenker and a guy named Spencer Surcombe. Surcombe, I think his name was. He was from Shark Island. Do you remember Shark Island?
Do, yes. Contraband.
Another sort of, yeah, exactly. Contraband too, yeah. Another sort of hair metal band.
I have a funny
but
story
Spencer
about
was
Contraband
playing-
that I will tell you after this.
Okay. Well, Spencer was playing 12-string acoustic, which I love a good 12-string. And there's just such a depth to that sound. And then Schenker was doing his thing and Robin's voice. And for an all acoustic show, the word that anytime I think about that show, the word that comes to my mind is electric. There was like an electricity in the air. And they put it out. It's funny. I found this the other day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unplugged live, and look at that price
Look at
right
that
there.
price.
Kid.
My goodness.
$35 because it only came out in Japan. So I had to import it from Japan. This was in 92, 93. So, no internet, no Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So like it was a mail order catalog or something. So I'm sure I paid $35 at the time plus shipping from Japan. But I love it's like my favorite version.
I'm going to need you to
song.
send me that, my friend.
I got you. Yeah.
But going back to Shark Island. So, before really, now every day there's a new supergroup, but back then in at 89, 90, there was a quote unquote supergroup, which was Michael Schenker. Let's see if I can remember the people. Michael Schenker was on guitar. Tracy Guns was the other guitar player.
Yeah,
the bassist from Vixen, I don't remember her name.
Oh my gosh.
And the drummer was Bobby Blotzer. Is that right?
Yep. That's
from
right.
Rat. And the singer, don't know his name, was the guy from Shark Island, which is the first time I'd ever heard of the band Shark Island, because they weren't really one of the famous bands or anything.
Right.
But anyway, so there was a tour where they played. It was like it was Rat, Shark Island, Bang Tango, and one other band. Don't remember who the other band was. And Rat was obviously the headliner because they were really big at the time. And I think the second band was maybe this Contraband with the thing. And so we went to go see this show. And the Contraband comes on. They start playing their first song. The singer's mic isn't working. He's like yelling at everybody. Singer's mic isn't working. Meanwhile, the band's playing.
Richard Black. His name is Richard Black.
That's it. Correct. And he, after about 2 minutes in the song, he's frustrated. He throws the mic down, walks off stage. Band finishes the song. End of the set. Done.
Wow, really?
He was finished.
A
and
little
lost
prima
his
donna, little
mind.
Axl Rose action there. Wow.
And then Rat comes on, and that was it.
Wow. That's
So
crazy.
yeah, this is funny, man. We're really geeking out. Okay, let's move
Yep.
on. Oh, this is one of your favorites. All right, White Lion.
White
Lights and
Line.
Thunder.
Great song. Definitely Hair Farmers. You know, you're talking about a lead singer who just, you couldn't get more gorgeous. You know what I mean? Like all the
It's
girls are
basically a
freaking
woman. I
out.
mean, yeah. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he was a beautiful man, let's say. Let's be honest. But the frosted tips. I just remember the very first video was like this golden god with these frosted tips on his hair. I actually saw Mike. His name's Mike Tran. I saw him about a month ago at a little club here in LA. And it's cool. I mean, he looks good. He's aged well. He's in his early 60s. Shorter hair, but kind of shaggy. Still good shape. His voice sounds good. He was doing all the White Line stuff, but
Yep.
this song again, there's not a lot of depth to a lot of the hair metal stuff, but this song was different. It's almost like 7 or 8 minutes long, maybe. Very Zeppelin-esque, kind of has this epic thing going on. And to me, it was like their version of Ebony and Ivory or Imagine or something. John Lennon was like, don't worry about all the divisions. We're more alike than we're
You
different.
mean lyrically,
Our
not
sound
musically. It's not like
lyrically, no, exactly.
Ebony
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, definitely lyrically. Like there's Martin Luther King Jr. quotes in there, from I Have a Dream, and so it was their attempt to be cerebral, to be
yeah, for
socially
sure.
aware, I think.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
cool.
this was
It's a great song.
this album was their proggy album. This is where they tried
Yeah.
to be like more serious musicians and show
Yep.
people, hey, we can write beyond, weight and all that stuff. Never, it never really took off. I think this was sort of almost the end of that era, and no one
Yeah.
cared anymore, that kind of stuff. But
This would have been 91, where the tide
91.
was starting to change, and
yeah. Which happened to all these bands that put out their kind of advanced musical record around this time, but people were already starting to check out. White Line's one of those bands I never really liked, other than Vito Bratta, who's one of the greatest guitar players of all time.
Eddie Van Halen and Jimi Hendrix. I mean,
The guy was nuts.
effortless player.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I could never get into this guy's voice too much. But some of those songs were still really good. And then this is a good one. So let's see. I marked a little bit here. All right, let's check it out.
Let me take you to a place where everybody knows your face. There's no king and there's no queen, and everything is like a dream. You can live in harmony with those who were your enemy. You can do just what you want to. No one here will ever hurt you. There'll be lights and thunder. There'll be a time to wonder. And there will be no crying. There'll be lights and thunder.
I mean, you can't get farther away from Wait and When
Yep.
the Children Cry, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
they really
Exactly.
tried to change, which is, good for them.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Obviously, we're not going to do one of these podcasts without these guys, but you and I both, we hate calling them hair metal. To me, they were not part of that scene. Very cool.
There
Oh,
it is.
nice. I didn't see that. That's new.
Yep.
Def Leppard to me were not part of that scene. They were above it. They were better than this. But yes, of course, it was that era, and it is what it is. The amazing thing is I'm putting together this playlist of all these songs that we decided to include. One of the things that still stands out to me is like, this album just sounds so much better than everything else. Like, even now, it sounds so great. The production is just stupid, honestly. It was so far ahead of its time and how it sounded and what they were doing. It's not even fair. But obviously this album had all the pop hits, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Love Bites, Animal, blah, blah, blah. It was ridiculous. But on the beginning of the second side was this epic prog masterpiece, Gods of War, which was just like mind blowing for a young kid at the time to hear this. Um, the thing that I loved about this was all the background vocals going on. I mean, there
Yeah.
has to be hundreds of layers of
Yeah.
background vocals going on, and it's just awesome. So, yeah, we'll throw them in here. Why not? Here we go. Love that.
Always
Love that.
my favorite song. Always off that record. Always. I mean,
Yeah, for
if you
sure.
only had time to listen to one Hysteria song, I love that tune.
For
It was
sure.
like, Reagan era, 1987. We all kind of grew up under this, doom of like we're not going to make it to 20 because there's going to be a nuclear war. Russia's going to bomb us. We're going to bomb them.
Right.
That was just the whole thinking, right? And here was their socially conscious song about, fighting for the gods of war, and all that. And it was just progressive enough where, I remember having friends in high school who, be like, oh, you like Def Leppard? It was usually like the kids who liked The Cure or Prince or, Michael Jackson, which I loved all that stuff too. But they'd be like, oh, pour some sugar on me. You're like, no, like you're trying
Right.
to impress a girl. It's like,
That's what I was
no,
like.
no.
No,
Have you
listen
heard
to this.
Gods of War? Yeah, they're talking about like political things and things like that. And
Yeah.
do you want to go out on Friday night? No, that's okay. All
Still
right.
no.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. You still no?
But you know what was cool about for me, I think we've talked about this with these guys, but like every album they've done, even to now, has a song or two like this that they throw in with
Yep.
all the other stuff, which was what I always thought was really cool. You had Die Hard the Hunter and Billy's Got a Gun off Pyromania. You had White Lightning, even off Adrenalize.
Yep.
Scar off of the album X, which is super poppy record. I mean, there's always been a song or two that they try to do a little bit more. Paper Sun on Euphoria. I mean,
Love it. Love it.
So yeah, props to them for always keeping that going. That's what I always appreciated about them.
And
Okay.
if anybody, if you're watching this and you are a Def Leppard fan, maybe go back and look. Roy and I did a podcast with
Yeah.
Rick Allen from Def Leppard about 2 years ago. And we talked a little bit about that. We talked about them even on their
Well, it
EP
was a
and
deep
On Through
cuts,
the Night.
deep cuts
Yeah.
podcast. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but they definitely had influences, the prog rock 70s influences, which bled into their early stuff, and they've maintained it throughout.
Yep. Okay, moving forward. Tesla, Song and Emotion. Well, tying in with Def Leppard, but go ahead.
Totally. Yeah. So I thought, did you see him on the Hysteria tour? You were maybe a little younger.
I did not, but I did see them on this tour, the Psychotic Supper tour.
Okay. So I saw him at least twice, when Tesla opened for Def Leppard, and by all accounts, they became great friends from that tour. And I think even Phil Collin maybe produced one of the later Tesla records.
A
They're
recent
still
album
buddies.
called Shock. Yeah.
Yeah, Shot. Okay, yeah, that's it. So they're still friends, and I think this song speaks to, if you don't know what it's about, it's basically all about Steve Clark. It was their tribute to Steve Clark when he passed in '91. It's called Song and Emotion, and these are from guys who were on the road and saw it. The lyric is like, you see a man most every day, a lonely man and his guitar, and life is not always what you think it's going to be when you make it to the big time. But I think they intentionally made this song sound like a Steve Clark song. It's
Yeah.
got that bluesy hard rock vibe, that sound that Steve had and the way he constructed stuff. this is definitely a progressive rock song to me. It goes in different directions. It takes you on a journey. It's 8.5 minutes long. The double lead guitar kicks in towards the end. This is it's a great record and a great testament to, a guitar player who influenced a ton of people.
Yeah, and also this album was their, again for them, their proggiest record because it does have a lot more styles, a lot more influences. It goes in a bunch of different places. We debated about using a different song from this album for the podcast, called "Freedom Slaves," which is also really cool. Yeah, what I like when they start to lead into talking about him in the song, and then there's this guitar that comes in that plays like he would have played it if it was a Def Leppard song. That kind of staccato, kind of palm muting sound that Def Leppard is known for. So I thought that was such a cool way to represent him and like he's in the song, which is like super cool. So yeah, this is great. Check this out.
Suddenly the pain slowly fades away. Tatatonic brain, there's a place within his heart. He'll always say the song and emotion. No, he's got to styling song and emotion. Hear it play. You can still hear him say, better run for cover, 'cause it looks like rain.
It's hard to turn these songs off once they start coming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep rocking. Yeah, man, Tesla was awesome. Their first 3 albums, that's as good a first 3 albums for your first 3 albums that a band has ever made, I think.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. And they've maintained, by all accounts, they're just those blue collar guys. They're still out there touring, doing their thing, and
I think only 3. Is it 3 of the same members right now, though? Right?
Yeah.
Guitar,
Frank,
bass, and
Brian,
drums.
and Jeff.
And singing. The drummer's out.
Yeah.
Different drummer now, I think.
Right.
Okay, moving on. Whitesnake, Slip of the Tongue. So, the previous album, the self-titled from '87, was when they broke big. They had been around for years, but that was the one with Here I Go Again and Still the Night. Still the Night maybe could have worked for this podcast easily.
A little bit. I agree.
Very proggy, very Kashmir, Led Zeppelin. But everyone knows that song. I wanted to go with this one, Judgment Day. This is the album where Steve Vai took over on lead guitar and just changed the sound just enough. It's very different guitar-wise. They're very specific players, him and John Sykes, and they can't sound like each other if they tried.
Right.
So, this song was just always, it's one of the best songs from that whole era to me. The whole thing about it, the way the drums kick in. This is a really underrated album. There's some amazing songs on this album. Sailing Ships is another one that closes it.
Oh.
Slip of the Tongue, the title track. I mean, there's some real outrageous songs on here. And the guitar playing from Steve Vai, of course, is just, he was at the peak of his powers at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Saw them on this tour with Bad English opening, which was really cool. I remember that concert really well. That was fun. So yeah, I'll play a little bit of this one. I'm just going to start at the beginning. I don't think we'll maybe get too far deep into it, but you got to start with the drums in the beginning of this song, because that's what it
takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
It takes you on a journey. Very Kashmir-like.
Yeah. And Coverdale was such a great singer at the time.
The night is gone, the time has come to find a new day has begun, and it promises to stay, to soothe the brave wasted years, kiss away
I mean, it's only a minute, but I'm gonna stop it. It sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Don't turn
such
it
a
off. Don't turn it off.
such a
Yeah.
good song, man. Really cool. All right,
Always
let's.
one of my favorites. That and then Sailing Ships too from that record. You're
Yes,
right. Very underrated record.
so good. All right, well, we love this one. We debated on whether or not to include Queensryche on this podcast because they are considered more of a prog metal band, and they get a lot of credit in that world. But for some reason, they also live in the hair metal world for some reason. And they're on Hair Nation. That's sort of where I drew the line on this because they're played on that alongside all these other bands, whereas other bands like Fates Warning and some of these bands that we talk about are not. So I don't know, it's weird, but you can always use an excuse to talk about Queensryche. And this is, I mean, if you're a Queensryche fan, Roads to Madness is
Yeah.
top 5 song. I mean, it's one of the greatest songs they ever made. And it predates a lot of these. This was from '84, from their
Oh yeah.
first real full-length record.
This was definitely their first true prog epic. You know, in '84, nobody was doing stuff like this, 9 minutes long, and you know, I'm glad you introed that because when you brought up Queensryche, I'm like, they're not hair metal. They never were. The only time that they ever did anything with the hair and the makeup and stuff was during Rage for Order, and that was more like a gothic vampire kind of thing. It was
Yeah.
never about looking pretty, you know. But you're talking to a guy who had QRYK on his license plate for like a decade. I have a custom made Operation Mindcrime leather jacket I had made. I've got Rage for Order put on my arm. I don't need much of an excuse to talk about Queensryche.
Right.
And I think because of Silent Lucidity, and like you said, a lot of those videos came up in the late '80s when hair metal and Headbangers Ball were a thing. So we'll include them in there. Why not? But yeah, definitely when you think about prog metal epics, it had to have been the first one. I think. I don't think of an epic song. Remember prog? The term progressive metal hadn't been coined yet in '84.
Yeah.
You know, when they came out in '83, they pretty much sounded like Iron Maiden, Dio, Judas Priest, that kind of classic metal thing. And then they started taking it off in this weird direction that was kind of prog rock like, but they were playing metal music. So at some point that term came around.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
agree. You know, Fates Warning and Queensryche were kind of the two architects early on, or at least two well-known ones. But this song is a trip from beginning to end. Some people think it's about mental illness. Some people think it's like just descending into the depths of madness. I seem to remember reading that Jeff Tate was doing mushrooms when he came up with the concept for the whole song. So I guess it is a descent into madness.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so it
great
starts
song.
off kind of mellow, clean guitars, that kind of whole thing, and it has this big build up, and then there's a break in the middle, and then the ending is like full out, hard rock.
Yep.
Yeah, this one's awesome, and yeah, so always a good time to play this. I mean, you don't get better than this.
Yes, we're on the road to
Well, you can see there's still 4.5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a master of his voice. He knew exactly
Yeah.
what he was doing. This was talk about like Steve Vai and the height of his powers. Jeff Tate in this era and leading into the Rage for. I mean, it's just nuts. Nobody was doing that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you had Rob Halford doing the super high stuff and Bruce Dickinson, but Jeff just took it in a whole.
No, but he did it in a way that wasn't screechy. It was melodic.
Right. Yep.
and emotional,
Emotional.
which
Yeah.
yeah, the best. Okay, so I think we're getting to maybe three of the more epic songs. Well, I would include Road to Madness. These are the top four. I think that are the most epic ones. Um, I'm a big Winger fan. They get the worst rap out of any of these bands, in my opinion. Um, when I liked the first two records, but they were still a little bit. I didn't care for like the pop hits. I thought the other stuff was cooler, but they weren't one of my favorite bands really at the time. Just kind of one of the good ones that I thought were decent. They were in that Rat Dawkins era, sort of era for me that I like. I like those bands, but didn't love them. Um, but then they put up Pull in 93 and blew me away with this album. I mean, this album is amazing. Everything on it is awesome, and they really took the writing up a notch. And they were doing all kind of like these awesome 12-string acoustic stuff with vocal harmonies. And it, man, if there was one album, maybe not the one album, but let's say if there were two or three albums that should have gone still successful, even though grunge was happening, this should have been one of those albums. It was that good, and this song is amazing. Um, let's see, where did I target to start here a bit? Drunk Air Dog. So it goes. It's the first half. It's very heavy, heavier than they had ever done to this point, and then the second half is all like acoustic, and it's really cool, the transition.
And screaming absolute submission. Now the dog's inside you. The junkyard dog speaks for you. Ain't no master of the junkyard dog. Frozen man, drag not forever in the foaming jaw and invisible claw. Ain't no master of the junkyard dog. Ain't no master.
This part.
Look what you've done now. Roll the dice, paradise. Tell them we'll take it bad advice. Baby, ain't no master of the junk.
A lot of layers, a lot of
Now it
depth.
goes into this
Yeah.
whole part of the song for like 3 minutes, and it's just tremendous. Man, that
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like when they came out, obviously Kip is super pretty, and and even Reb had like the big poofy poodle hair going on. But they had the drummer for the Dixie Dregs, man. You're just like, there's something different. These guys aren't just a
yeah.
hair metal band. There's some depth to them. And then you found out later that I think Kip did like he scores classical, he does classical music
Yeah,
and
he was
stuff.
nominated for like a Grammy, I think, for like a classical thing that he wrote
Yeah,
like maybe 5, 6
there,
years
there,
ago.
there's definitely a depth to his songwriting, and that you're right. It came out on this record. Down Incognito, that's from this
That
record
was
too,
the
right?
hit. Yeah, that's the song that
Yeah.
took me. I was like, wait, they're writing something really different. And so I
This is
checked out the
different. Yeah.
album, and I was just mind blown from this record. And then they went away. He did a bunch of solo records, which, by the way, amazing solo records.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
then when Ringer came back, I want to say maybe 10 years later or something like that, mid 2000s. They've put out 3 or 4 albums since then, like a second phase of the band that have been awesome and very proggy, mind you. They've really they stopped writing the cheesy songs. There's some on there, but more of it's like this, which
Right.
has been really cool. So if you never wanted to dive into Winger, this is a band that if you like prog metal, honestly, it's you'd like a lot of them, the newer
That's
stuff,
true.
especially. If you're just 17, it's like it doesn't make any sense in their catalog at
Right.
all. But it probably pays the bills, right? So
That's it.
there you go.
It afforded them the chance it afforded him the chance to make classical music.
Yeah. Yeah. So Guns N' Roses Estranged. You could have gone November Rain or this one, I think, because they're two massive epics. And November Rain is obviously the big hit. I opted for this one. I think it's actually a better song, but also I'm sort of sick of November Rain. I never want to hear that song again in my life. So,
Absolutely. Never.
you
Yeah.
know, I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, I mean, in '91, I certainly wouldn't have considered this progressive. I just thought it was kind of Axl being Elton John, or Queen, kind of being self-indulgent because he's now this rich rock star who can do whatever he wants. But certainly listening back, I hadn't listened to it. You put it on the list. I had not listened to Estranged in a long time. And I went, this is a prog rock song for sure. Heavy song. Um, do you remember the video, the music video? I watched it
Well, I
a
rewatched it
couple
while
days ago.
I was looking at this event. Yeah, it's weird.
It's got the dolphins and the special effects and stuff. Do you know how much money that video cost?
Oh, do tell.
$4
Wow.
million.
Amazing.
And can you imagine a music video in 2023 costing $4 million?
You're lucky if
That's
it
the
costs
kind of
$4,000 now.
making them on our iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they still. I was at the Power Trip Music Festival a couple weeks ago, and Guns N' Roses was part of it. As a band, as a whole band, they sound really good. They still sound like Guns N' Roses. Axl's voice is what it is. And unfortunately, that's happening for a lot of singers from that
Yeah.
era. You doom yourself when you write a song at 23 years old with all these super screechy high notes,
Right.
and then when you're 60, it's hard to maintain. But Estranged was kind of the sweet spot for him, since a lot of it's in that lower register. His lower register still sounds like Axl. He's got that that kind of gravelly thing
Yeah.
going on. But yeah, I mean, anything anything they lacked in maybe Axl's vocal abilities, they made up for in quantity. They played for 3.5 stinking hours. It was 104 degrees in the desert, and they just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I agree. I would pick this song any day over November Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
really
agree. I
cool,
always thought this
really
one
cool
was
venture
the
into
better one.
Prog.
Yeah, and there's
Yep.
a lot of cool parts in it. It goes a lot of different places. I just picked one part that I think is kind of cool, but I mean, you could pick a number of places in this one and just. Let's see.
I'm much too young to let love break my heart. Young at heart, but it's getting much too late to find myself so far apart. I don't know how you're supposed to find it lately. And what more could you ask for me? I'm going to say that I'm down to meet you. When you took everything, said you took everything from me. And it gets so hard to wait when no one I know can seem to help me now. Oh, I'm but I mustn't hesitate if I'm to find my own way out. Keep talking to myself and nobody's home alone.
That's awesome. That part's great. Man, I
Yeah,
forgot
love
how
it.
good of a song that is.
Yeah, I did too. Absolutely. I'm glad you put it on there.
Yeah. So really, for me, this whole podcast is an excuse to just get to this record.
Kind of true.
I mean, this album can make me cry sometimes. It's so good and so underappreciated and underrated. I mean, it's just one of the greatest albums in my opinion ever made. And the third part of it. So if anybody's not familiar, this was Extreme's third record, and they decided to go all kind of epic, and they called it. And there were 3 sides to it: Yours, Mine, and The Truth. And they split the album into that. So the first 6 songs were sort of the heavier, more traditional, them being kind of rockers. The middle section was bit more diverse, kind of Queen, acoustic-y kind of stuff like that. and then the last 3 song is a super prog sweet, 3 tracks that totals 21, almost 22 minutes. They split up into 3 tracks, and it is 100% prog in every way possible. And it's just the best thing. And the mega disappointment for me was after this, they followed this album up with Waiting for the Punchline, which was such a gut punch because it's just possibly one of the worst albums ever made. Apologies to anybody that likes it or if you like it. But coming off of Porno Graffiti, which was amazing, and then they took it up a notch to this, which is unbelievable. And then and after that, it was really just so bad. I was devastated. It was so terrible. But anyway, but Mike Mangini was on the Waiting for the Punchline tour, which I spoke about in our other podcast, and that's where I saw him, and so at least that came out of that. But anyway, yeah. I mean, what's to say about this album? It's just, let's get to playing some of this. I didn't know where to pick, so I'm just gonna play like the last 2 minutes, which is just epic glory, and we'll just go through that. You have anything you want to say about this one? Was this an album you liked a lot?
No,
Or
it's funny, man. I definitely slept on this record. I love Pornography. Love that record. I thought it was very innovative as far as that style at the time. But I think when this came out, I listened to it and I was so confused. I didn't know what I was
I
listening
think a
to
lot of
because
people
it
were like
wasn't
that.
what
Yeah, it was
yeah,
different than
so
porno.
different.
Yeah.
And I think this is a band that gets underestimated a lot, mainly because of More Than Words. Everybody know, oh, they're that band with that cute little ballad and everything. But between those two guys, it's all about Gary and Nuno, man. I mean, Nuno is basically a singer in his own right, lead singer. But the way that those guys do their harmonies together, they're great songwriters. I went back and listened to this record. Now I need to go back and or listen to the song. I need to go back and listen to the whole record based on everything you're saying here. But I love the orchestration, the way it builds, the whole Beatlesy kind of vibe to it. But yeah, you've encouraged. If nothing else, if no other viewers go back and listen to Three Sides, I'm going to because yeah, I think
I
I
had the
enjoyed it the
guitar
first
book. I had the guitar book for this one. I learned this one inside and out, and I had this album cover as a poster on my wall. I mean,
time.
I'm not kidding. There was a real strong 3 sides period for me, and
Wow.
saw them on tour for this record with who opening? Do you remember?
Oh, Saigon Kick.
That's right.
No, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Saigon
yeah,
Kick.
yeah. Our good friends.
I saw,
Which
I saw the tour too. Yeah, yeah.
I almost included Saigon Kick in this, but while they were eclectic, I don't think they ever got real proggy enough
No, I
for
agree.
something
I
that
agree.
included here.
As much as you and I want them to be, and certainly Jason Beeler's stuff is,
The new
but the
solo
Saigon
stuff
stuff
might be a
was.
little bit more, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I think I've drooled over enough about this record, but let's go ahead and play it. I mean, this ending is just ridiculous.
Here I am, a naked man, nothing to hide, with empty hands. Remember me? Well, I am the one who lost his way, your prodigal son.
forward a little bit. I mean, it goes on a little bit, but so good. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, the world wasn't ready for this record.
No.
It was ahead of its time for sure.
This was literally Nirvana was out during the time this album came out.
Yeah. You can tell. Just listen to that. Like they crafted this, man. They spent their time. They took their time in building this whole thing.
No, it's tremendous. There was I wish I had it because at the time this was 92, and there was I remember this. There was a Guitar World magazine, Guitar World, Guitar Player, one of those magazines that had them on the cover, and it was ranking like the albums of the year, and it had this as the album of the year, above other stuff like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, things like that. I remember that specifically. And then, of course, we all know how that turned out. So this album really
didn't go their way.
A commercial disaster. And, you know, I mean, this was their third album. They just put out their sixth album. Like, I mean, it's been years. It's been a long time.
40 years.
So, a new album 6 has some pretty good stuff. It's maybe their best album since this one. For sure.
Yeah,
I don't love everything on it, but easily their best album since this one. So worth checking out. And his solo on that song Rise is it's one of the all-time guitar solos at this point.
Yeah. Your head explodes. Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. Who else did we maybe forget to include? I don't know. I feel like, I mean, some big names we didn't include, but they never really got to that point of progginess that I think fit.
Right.
Like Motley Crue, Rat, Cinderella, Dokken, all bands I like, but I don't think that musically they never reached into the deepness category.
Right. There was no progressive Poison song. Yeah.
Poison, another one. No.
But like it'll be interesting to see if people want to put comments in here. You know, what would you guys have put on this list? Because I'm sure there's songs that Roie and I have not thought of. And, you know, we look forward to your angry cards and letters because there's going to be some people that say, well, you didn't include this band, or why did you include that band? You know, everybody's got their definition of what makes something progressive or what makes it truly hair metal, you know. So we all have our opinions.
This is very subjective, I think, but a lot of fun. It's music that is near and dear to our hearts and that we still like. And so it's fun to be able to revisit for an hour and have a little fun. Thank you, Kyle, for joining me on this and letting me bug you for months and months till we finally made this happen.
This is great. I appreciate it, man. This is awesome.
All right, guys. So if again, like Kyle said, let us know what you liked, didn't like. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. This one I think is just going to be on our YouTube, not on our audio podcast. And progreport.com, follow us on all the socials, and make sure you catch up on some previous episodes. We did a live stream on Mike Portnoy coming back to Dream Theater that's been generating a lot of views, and of course the Wheel of Prog episodes and everything else going on. And our best of the year episode will be out later towards December, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on all our socials and on progreport.com for all your news, interviews, reviews, and more. And we'll see you again real soon.